Hello everyone, myself Magesharan. So this is my first task at NeedData as a part of my data science internship. In this session, I'll be discussing some basic Python programs which will be useful for improving your programming skills and also for tackling some interview questions. So let's get started. So the first one is to insert a new element at the beginning of an ordered dictionary. I suppose you all know what's the difference between a normal dictionary and an ordered dictionary. So in an ordered dictionary, all the elements are present in the same order as we have stored them, but not in the case of an usual one. So this is an usual dictionary. Here you can see I'm storing them in the BCD order, and I'm printing them, I'm getting BDC. So you can see the orders are shuffled. This doesn't happen in the case of an order dictionary. So our task is to insert an element at the beginning of an order dictionary. So this is our new element. What we are doing is that we are creating another new order dictionary as order dictionary data type. So first I'm inserting this new element to it, followed by the old one. So here I'm inserting the old one. So when I'm printing them, it looks like I've inserted the new element at the beginning of an order dictionary. So in second one. So the next question is to write a Python program to check order of character and string using order dictionary. So for this, I'm having two strings, the input string and reference string. We need to check if they are in the same order. For this, I'm defining a function called check order, which takes the parameter string and reference. So first I'm forming the two order dictionaries. Then I'm checking if they are equal. So if they are equal, this function will return true. So that's it. That's the remaining of it. So in this order, we'll be checking if the order of the keys are equal. So this probably result as if they are equal. So if I'm changing the orders like LE, that it doesn't match. So that's the question. So the next question is to write a Python program to sort Python dictionary by key or value. So this is my input. So first I'm creating a dictionary from the dictionary. So when I'm sorting them, I'm creating another dictionary in which I'm using the sorted function to sort this one. So I'm sorted them and I store them in this name, under this name. So when I'm printing, I'll be printing this. So with this, by default, it filters, it sorts by keys. For sorting based on the value, I'll be using this extra one called item is to item of 1. So in a dictionary, they are stored in the key value pass. So the first element is key and the next element is value. So if I'm replacing it with 0, I'll be getting an dictionary function that is sorted based on the key. So if I'm writing it as 1, then you can see they are sorted based on the values. So this is in the third one. So next one is here you can see we need to write a program for this q value. So the q is square root of 2 CD by h. And you can see that c value is also given and h value is also given. We need to take d. So d is in comma separated sequence. So this is the example of an d. So with which will be for every element in d, we will be calculating the q value. So first for the square root, I am importing math functions for math. So this math library has the function square root. So for that I am importing it. And c is 50 and h is 30. Then I am creating a function for calculating d. So this function returns the square root of 2 into c into d divided by h. So c and h are constant and d will be our input for this function. So after that, so this is our function. Then here is where I'm getting the input from the users, which will be in the comma separated values. So after getting the input, I'll be splitting them based on the comma and storing them as a list in d values. So for every element in d values, so for d in d values, I'll be calculating the q value, and that will be stored in the result in the form of list. So for this list, I'll be joining those lists with commas. For that I'm using this join function and mapping them as a string. So in the string format, this list will be combined and in between them we'll have commas. So that's the main idea. So it requires the highest of inputs in the comma separated format. So here you can see we have got the outputs. So the next question is to take the 2 digits x and y, and we need to create a 2-dimensional array. So this is basically x means the row and y means the column. So the condition is that the ith row and jth column of the column should be ij, which is easy. Let's see how we do that. I'll be getting the inputs from the user in the form of x comma y. Then I'm splitting them based on the comma. Then I'm storing them in the x comma y variables. So after that, I am forming a empty array using a list comprehension and nested for loop in it. So after this session, we'll be having 0, 0, 0, 0 in the x comma y dimensions. So after that, I'm filling them with the conditions. So for that, I will be using a nested for loop, and in the array of I comma j, it will be stored. The values will be I star j, which is I into j. So when I'm printing them, this is what I get. So this will be 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. So multiplying anything in 0 will result in 0. So these are in 0. So this will be 1, 1. This will be 1, 2. This will be 1, 3. So 1 into 1 will be 1. 1 into 2 will be 2. 1 into 3 will be 3. So that's how we got it. Next question is to take the input as a comma separated word and print them in the comma separated word after sorting them. So the task is we need to get the inputs from the user, different words in the comma separated sequence, and we'll be sorting them and we'll be printing them again in the string format. So for that, what I'm doing is that first I'm getting the inputs from the users and using this function. So after getting the inputs, we'll be simply splitting them using the commas and storing them in the words. So this is a list. So then we are simply using this sorted function to sort this list. And after sorting, we are using this join function to join the every list elements using the commas. So in between them, a comma will be placed. So then we are storing them in the sorted sequence variable. Then we are printing them. So that's how we got this. So it's to write a program that accepts a sequence of white space separated words as inputs and print the words after removing all the words and sorting them alphanumerically. So this is simple. Getting the input from the user using this function. So they'll be entering the words in like they are entering in the sentence with the space in between the words. So after receiving the words, we are splitting them using this empty parameter. So if you are not passing any parameter to the split function, it is considered as a space. So it will be splitting the words in a sentence. Then we are converting them into set format. So why we are converting them into set is that only them, all the duplicates elements will be removed and they are stored in the words variable. So then we are sorting this set variable, and after sorting we are joining them as usual, and we are printing the result. First is to write a program that accepts a sentence and calculate the number of letters and digits present in it. So like if this is the input, we need to calculate how many letters and digits are present in it. For that, we'll be writing a program. For that, what I'm doing is that first, for this program, I'm getting the inputs from the user using this input function, and I'm declaring 2 variables, letter count and digit count, as zeros initially. And I'm running a for loop for every letter in the sentence. And if that letter is alpha, if that letter is alpha, then we are adding 1 to this letter count. And if it is a digit, we are adding 1 to this digit count. Then we are printing it. It is simple. Our website requires the users to input username and password to register. Write a Python program to check the validity of password input by users, following the criteria for checking the question. This is what we know. We already know that these are the criteria that to be followed for a strong password. So we need to check if these criteria are met for the input password. So your program should accept a sequence of comma separated passwords and will check them accordingly to the above process that match the criteria to be printed. So only the ones that follow all the criteria will be printed in the output. So for this, I'll be using this re function. I'm defining a new function called isValidPassword, in which I'm passing the password. So first I'm checking the length of the password. If it is between 6 and 12, then only we are going to the next step, or else we are immediately returning it as a false one, meaning it isn't a valid password. So if it is between 6 and 12, then we are going to the next one and just checking if that password matches all those things. So this is the format for our criteria. We can get it online. So we are checking if our password contains these things, and if it is true, we are returning true. So this is the function. Then we are getting the input from the user, and we are splitting the password with commas, meaning the set of passwords will be entered by the users, and we are splitting them and storing them in the password. So this passwords variable is a list function. Then we are making another valid passwords list, and we are creating it empty. And for every password in passwords, we will be checking if is valid password of PST, if every password is valid, and those passwords will be appended to the new one, the valid ones, and then when they will be joined while printing. So and we string one. Here you can see only the one with which met all the criteria is printed, the others are neglected. So that's it. So the next question is to write a Python program that prints all the elements between 0 and n that are divisible by 7. So basically using a class. So this is my class named divisible by 7. Under that I'm writing this one. This usually runs as soon as I call this class using my object. So under that this is my main function named generate divisible by 7, which runs a for loop from 0 till the n plus 1, because if my input is 5, I need to check till 5, not till 4. So for that I'm adding plus 1, meaning I'll be checking till 5. So under that I'm checking using a if condition to check if that number is divisible by 7 or not. If it is divisible by, I'm using that number. So that's what this function defines. So n is my input variable. So using this, I'll be receiving the inputs from the user. So this is my list that contains all the numbers that are divisible by 7 between 0 and my input. So for that, I'm calling this class, and with the input as with my parameter as n. So n is my input, which I have received from the user, and I'm calling this function under the class. So all the elements between 0 and the input one that are divisible by 7 are stored in this variable. Then I'm printing them. Here you can see let's give 22. So now I'm receiving the output as 0, 7, 14, 21. Then program that takes the input from the user and finds the frequency of the word after sorting them alphanumerically. So that's what my problem statement is. That's the question. So using the input from the user using this one, then I'm splitting those inputs based on the spaces between them. So all the words are splitted and stored in the list format in the words variable. So then I'm creating a multi-dictionary named word frequency. So for every word in this words, if that word is first, I'm removing all the punctuations from those words, and I'm converting them into lowercase. And then if that word is already present in my dictionary, I'm just adding the value and just incrementing the value by 1. And if it isn't present, I'm adding the word to my dictionary. So after adding the words to my dictionary, I'm sorting them using the sorted function, and I'm printing the new dictionary. So here you can see. So my next question is to define a class named person and 2 classes named male and female, and under all those classes we'll be having a function called getGender that returns the respective genders. So here you can see define the class. So this is my parent class, and that I have defined the getGender, and if this one is called, it will return unknown. And this is my child class, male, and inside it, this parent class is passed as a parameter. The same goes for female. So, I define the classes, then I'm calling them, and then when I'm printing their get gender function, you can see their respective genders are printed. So the next question is to write a program to generate all sentences where subject is I, you, and verb is play, love, and the object is in key, football. So it will we need to create a combination of sentences that has the subject as I, you, and verb as these two, and object as these two. So for this, I'm first declaring all the variables and initializing an empty list called sentences. Then I'm running all those things in a nested for loop. Then I'm making the combinations. Then I'm appending it to the sentence. So all those combinations are appended to this sentence list. And when I'm printing them, this is what we get. So our next question is to write a program to compress and decompress the string. So for which I'm importing this package called setlib, and this is our input text. First I'm using this compress function and under this setlib package, which takes the input string and encodes it, and it is stored in the compress string variable. Then for decompressing, I'm using this decompress function, and I'm passing the compress string and then decoding it. So when I'm printing, then this is what we get. So our next question is to write a Python program for binary search. So for that, I'm defining a function called binary search. In that, I'm passing two parameters as first the array and the target element. So then I'm declaring two variables called left and right one as 0 to left and length of array minus 1 to right. Then I'm running a while loop given the condition left is lesser than or equal to right. So under that, first I'm making my middle element, which is left plus right divided by 2, and I'm checking the conditions. If the middle element is equal to our target element, then I'm returning the index of the middle element, and the middle element, if the middle element is lesser than my target element, then I'm shifting my left one to middle plus 1, or else I'm moving my right and to the middle minus 1. So if my element is not at all present in the list, then I'm returning minus 1. So this is my sorted array. So this is my target variable. So here is where I'm using my function. So I'm passing my array and my target variable. So if the result is not equal to minus 1, which means if the element is present, then I'm printing the position of my element. This is to write a Python program to print all the elements between 0 and n that are divisible by both 5 and 7. So for example, 100 is our input element. So we need to check for all the elements between 0 and 100 that are divisible by 5 and 7. So if the input is 100, then 0 is divisible by both 5 and 7. 35 is also divisible by 5 and 7. And 70 is also divisible by 5 and 7. So defining a function called divisible by 7 and passing the parameter n. So I'm running a for loop for all the number in the range n plus 1. So if 100, I need to check till 100, not till 99. So I'm adding plus 1. So I'm checking if the number is divisible by 4 and also it is divisible by 7, then I'm returning that number. So for this, I'm using this try exception method. So there can be an error where while entering the input, if it is not in the integer variable, integer data type, that is, if the input is given as float or something, we'll be printing this error. So I'm receiving the inputs from the user, then I'm checking it with our function, and I'm joining those things as a string with comma in between. So this is it. So my next question is to write a Python program to print all the even numbers between 0 and n in a comma separated form. For example, if 10 is my input, then my output should be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So for that, I'm defining a function called even numbers and passing the parameter as n. And for every number in n, I'm checking if the number is divisible by 2 or not. If it is divisible by 2, I'm returning that number. So here I'm receiving the input from the user. And then I'm calling the function with that input and storing all those in the result as a list. Then I'm joining the list of numbers as a comma between them. So it will make the input to 13. This is my output. So first one is to write a Python program for Fibonacci series with given logic. So for that I'm defining a function called Fibonacci, and that I'm passing a parameter n, which is the input. So first I'm initializing the sequence with the first two elements of my Fibonacci series. So with that, I'll be appending this one with the for loop. So this is the logic that gives the Fibonacci series stored in my sequence for all the elements in for the given n. Then I'm returning this sequence. So this is my Python program. So here I'm receiving the input from the user. Then I'm calling the function that I just declared. So then I'm converting the list into a single string with comma in between. Then I'm printing them. Question is to print the username from the given email ID. So for example, if this is my input, I'll be printing everything before this as my username, and I'll be excluding everything after that. So for that, I'm defining a function called kickstart username with my email ID as my input. So first I'm splitting them based on the symbol. So if the length of the list is 2, then only I'm going into this one. If it has more than one symbol, then it is an invalid email ID. So if it is equal to 2, if only there are 2 paths, that is the username and the company name, then I'm going into this one. Then I'm returning the first one, the username role. So this is my function. Here I'll be getting the inputs from the user. I'm getting inputs from the user. Then I'm using this function, my defined function. Then I'm printing the user menu. So our next question is to define a class named shape. Under that a subclass named square. So you can see the square is a subclass of the shape, and both has the init function and the area function in it. So in the init function will be for the shape class, we don't write a thing, so I'm just using a pass variable. So for the area function, I'll be returning 0 by default, if there is nothing, if there are no inputs, and I'll be returning 0. And for the square one with the input, I'll be returning the square of it. So this is my function. First I'm calling the object. First I'm calling the class. This is my object. So then I'm calling the class square, and with the input, by receiving the input from the user. So then I'm printing the areas of both. So in running, it is asking for input from the user. This is my still is to write a Python program for the input variable, and it must be converted into this format, like the word is structured. So if incredible is the input text, then the output will be in incredible. So this is my output. This will be my output, which is pretty easy. So for that, I'm defining a function called shutter. So with word as my parameter. So if the word is lesser than 0, then we can't do this one, right? If the word is a or if it is I or all those things, we can't do this. We can't follow this format. So if it is lesser than 0, we'll be directly returning this one, or else we'll be going into this condition in which we'll be printing the first 2 elements. We'll be slicing the first 2 elements followed by 3 dots space, again the first 2 elements followed by 3 dots space, and the whole word. So this will be stored under shuttered word, and it will be returned. For example, if these are our test variables, test inputs, so this will be our output. This will write a Python program that converts from radians to degrees. For this, I'm importing the math package. Under that, I'm defining a function called radians to degree with the parameter as radians. So then I'm converting first. This is the conversion this is the relation which is used to convert from radians to degrees. So I'm using this math package for importing the pi value. So then I'm storing it in the degrees. Then I'm returning it with one digit after the decimal, one decimal after the point. So that's why we use this one. So this is our in test variables. So like sheet. So we have converted for the given inputs. Question is to write a Python program to find the area of an hexagon. So for that I'm importing the math to use the square root function. So I'm defining a function called the area of hexagon with the parameter as x. Then I'm calculating the area and storing it under the variable area. Then I'm rounding it off with 1. Then I'm returning those. So this is my test input values. Yes. So the next question is to find the binary value for our given number. So for that I'm defining a function called binary and passing my input as decimal. So first I'm initializing the empty binary string. Then I'm running a while loop given the condition the decimal is always greater than 0. Then I'm dividing the decimal by 2 and the remainder is stored in the remainder variable. Then I'm converting the remainder variable into string data type. Then I'm adding it to the binary string. Then I'm changing the value of decimal to decimal divided by 2. So the quotient will be changed to the decimal value and everything after the point will be removed. So if a binary string contains anything, it will return that, or else it will return 0. Strings to write a Python. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes 3 arguments A, B, C. Or we'll be finding the numbers between A to B that are divisible by C, and we'll be adding those numbers. So for that I'm defining a function called evenly divisible, and the parameters are A, B, C. So first I'm initializing the empty total, a total with 0 value. Then for every number in the range A to B, I'm checking if those numbers are divisible by C. If they are divisible, I'm adding that number to the total, and I'm returning the total. Next question is to check if the given condition is correct or not. So if it is correct, we will be returning true. If it is wrong, we will be returning false. So for that, simply I am defining a function called correct and passing my expression mate. So I am giving a try using a try and exception method. It will evaluate if the given condition is true or not. So it is simply like to see writing this. So this will return true if the condition is correct. So if it is false, if it is not correct, it will simply return false. So for that we are writing a function. So our next condition is to write a Python program that receives the input and replaces the vowels in the string with a specific character. So for that I'm defining a function called replace vowels, and string is my input and character is the element with which I will be replacing my vowels of my input. So first I'm defining the vowels, capital and small letter all together. Then for every vowel in my vowels, for the first time I'll be taking this A, and for this string I'll be replacing, if A is using the replace function, I'll be checking if A is present in my string, I'll be replacing it with my given character. So then after doing everything, so first time it will take A. So A is checked with the input string. If the input string has A in it, it will be replaced with the character that we are passing. So this happens for everything, and the final output is intent. So our next question is to write a program to find the factorial of a number recursively. So recursion is simple. So this is our usual formula for finding the factorial. So first I'm defining a function called factorial and then passing the parameter n. So if the n is 0, its factorial of 0 will be 1. So if the n is 0, I'm returning 1, or else I'm writing the formula itself, which is n into factorial of n minus 1. So our next question is to find the Hamming distance. So what Hamming distance is that? It is the distance between the two strings. So if the characters differ, for example, if this is my string A and this is my string B, in that only the fifth element is changing. So the Hamming distance between string 1 and string 2 will be 1. So likewise, we need to calculate the Hamming distance. For that, I'm defining a function called Hamming distance. I'm passing the two strings, string 1 and string 2. First, I'm checking if the length of them are equal. If not, immediately I'm raising the error called the input string must have the same length. So if they are not of the same length, then I'm immediately exiting. Or else I'm defining a function called distance, defining a variable called distance as O. So for every element in the range, string 1, so I'm checking the first element of string 1 with the first element of the string 2. Once they are equal, I'll be incrementing my distance variable, and finally I'll be returning the distance variable.
Let me finish. And we are twice to the up.
So if I write a Python program that takes in a list of non-negative integers and a string and return a new list without the strings. So for example, if this is my string and I'll be removing the strings and returning only the numbers. So for that I'm writing a function, defining a function called filter string. In that I'm passing my list. So first I'm initializing a empty list, a result list. So for every element in my list, I'm checking if their data using the isInstance function. I'm checking if the element's data type is integer. If that element's data type is integer and it is greater than or equal to 0, I'll be appending that element to my result. So in using these conditions, I can check if the elements are greater than 0 or elements are greater than 0 and also they are integer or not. So finally I'm returning that result. So our next question is to receive the string as an input and return the string in a reverse order with the opposite case. So for this condition, I'll be using two concepts. One is the slicing technique and the other one is swap case. So for this, I'm defining a function called reverse and I'm taking the input string as my parameter. Then I'm defining a variable called reverse string, and in that I'm taking the input string and slicing with this thing. So this gives the reverse of my string. So the first part defines the starting element. So the second part defines the ending element, and the third part defines the step in which the element should be sliced. So if you are just writing one, there won't be any changes in it. So we can see they are in the same order. So -1 means from the end we'll be slicing the in a step count of 1. So that's there. And using this swap case function, we will be swapping them. We will be swapping their cases from lower to upper and upper to lower cases. Then I'm returning this reversed step. So next question is to write a Python program using which we can efficiently access the first element, middle element and the last element. Usually this is what we do while access to the first element. We will be slicing them with the index of 0 for the first element and -1 for the last element, and between 1 and -1 for the middle element. But how we can efficiently do is that we can use this method. So for example, if this is my list and I can assign the first star middle star last equal to the list. So the first element will be stored in the first parameter, first argument, and the middle elements will be stored in the middle argument, and the last element will be stored in the last argument. So accordingly we can say it a program for factorial using recursion. We have already done it. So I'm skipping this one. So first is to write a Python program to move on the elements of one type to the end of the list. For example, if this is my list and one is my inputs, one is my specified element, I may write a program that moves on the number 1 in the list to the one end. So for that I'm defining a function called move to end. In that I'm passing my list and the specified element. So first I'm finding the number of times the element repeats in the list, and I'm taking the count of it using the count function. Then using the list comprehension method for every element present in the list, and that element is not equal to a specified element, I'm taking them. So basically I'm removing all the removing all the specified elements in your main list. Then to this list, to the removed list, and we adding the elements times the count, element time the codes. So in this condition, what will be happening? So this is our list. So in the first step, we'll be taking the count of number 1. So 1 will be, the count will be 2. And in this step, we'll be removing all the elements that are all the specified elements from the list. So after this, 1 will be removed. So only this will be present in our list. So in the third step, I am adding the element times the count. So our element is 1, and it repeats 2 times in the list. So the list has the element. So this is what happens in this course. Let's write a Python program that takes an input string and returns a string in which each character is repeated once. So this is the example. So for which I am defining a function called double character, which takes the input string as the parameter. So then I'm initializing the empty double string. Then for every letter, every character present in the input string, I'm doubling them and adding them to the double strings. So then I'm returning them. So our next question is to write a Python program that reverses a boolean value and returns the string boolean expected if another variable data type is given. So for example, if true is the input, the output should be false, and if false is the input, true should be the output. Anything other than true or false should be, and the output should be boolean expected. So for this, I'm defining a function called reverse and passing my input as value parameter. So I'm checking using this instance function. So if each instance of the value is a boolean, then I'm returning not value, which is the opposite of the value. So it's true, and not if the input is true, in not true will be false. And anything other than the boolean data type will be returning boolean expected as well output. A Python program that returns the thickness of a piece of paper after folding it n number of times. So the initial thickness of paper is 0.5 millimeter. So for doing this, I am defining a function called number. So it can be on number of foldings. So number of foldings. So first I'm initializing the thickness of paper. So the thickness of paper is 0.5 millimeter, and the final thickness will be this thickness into 2 power n. N means for each folding the paper is doubled. So I'm using this logic to find the number of layers. So the number of layers times the thickness of paper would be my final thickness in millimeter. Then I'm converting it into V10. Then I'm printing down. So then it's the number of foldings. So we need to specify the number of foldings to get the answer. A Python program that takes a string as an argument and returns an ordered list containing the indexes of all capital list. So if this is our input in list, our output should be the indexes of all the capital letters in present string. So for that, I'm defining a function called indexes of caps, and words is my input. So I'm using list comprehension for this. So for every element present in words, and first I'm taking the index stored in I and the character stored in char. So if that character is in uppercase, so if they are capital letters, then I'm taking the index of those letters and making a list of it, and I'm returning the list. So our next question is to write a Python program that finds all the even numbers from 1 to the given number using list comprehension. So for that, I'm defining a function called find even numbers and passing my input text as number. Then I'm using the list comprehension for every element present in the range from 1 to the number till the number including the number, I'm checking if that number is divisible by 2. Then I'm returning that number and forming a list out of it. Then I'm returning that list. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes a list of strings and integers and filter out the list so that it only returns integers. So for this I'm defining a function called filter list, and I'm passing in a list net. Then I'm using list comprehension. For every element present in the list, I'm checking if that element's type is integer. Only then I'm returning that element and forming a list out of it, and then I'm returning that list. So write a Python program which runs the list, but with each element's index in the list added by itself. It means that you add 0 to OK. So in the next case, if this is our input text, we need to, if this is our input list, we need to add the index value to the value of the list itself. So in this case, 0 and the index is always 0, so it is 0, and here the index is 4 and the value is 0, so 0 plus 4, 4. So in this case, the index is 3, index is 2 and the value is 3, so 3 plus 2, 5. So for this, I am defining a function called add indexes, and I am passing a list as an parameter. So using list comprehension, for every value, for every index, for every element present in the list, using this I can get the index number as well as the values. Then I will simply adding the index and value with it and forming a list out of it and returning that list. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes the height and radius of a cone as argument and returns the volume of cone rounded to the nearest 100. So this is the formula for finding the volume of cone. So I'm defining a function called cone volume and taking the input parameter of height and radius. And if the radius is 0, I'm returning 0. If not, this is the formula. Using this, I'm finding the volume of my cone, and I'm rounding off it, and I'm rounding it off with 2 digits, 2 decimal values, using the round function. Then I'm returning the volume. Question is, this triangular number sequence is generated from a pattern of dots that form a triangle. So the first one, so the basic idea of this question is, so if the number of sequences is 1, then the output will be 1. We'll be using 1 dot. So if the sequence is 2, then we will be using 2 dots, totally 3 dots to form a triangle. So if our sequences if our sequence is 3, we'll be totally using 6 dots to form a triangle. So this is the basic concept. So we have to, so our sequence, we'll be defining a function called triangle in which our parameter will be in, and we need to find the number of, n will be the number of sequences, and we'll be writing a program to find the total number of dots used to build this triangle. So for this, I am using this condition where if the number is lesser than 1, I am returning 0. If not, this is the logic I am applying to get the number of dots. This is the task in it. So if your logical thinking ability is great, you can find this one. So finding this one is the task here. This is the challenge in here. So you can go by this method, or you can also say that you can also use, first for 1, the number of dots is 1. For 2, the number of dots is 1 plus 2. For 3, the number of dots is 1 plus 2 plus 3. So I can use arithmetic probability sum formula for this, which is n by 2 into 2a plus n minus 1 into 3. So in this condition, n into 2 times a, the first element is 0, so 2a plus the n minus 1 into n minus 1, and the difference is also 1. So this will be my formula. Let's see if this will works. So the previous this logic will work for the given condition. let's change it with the
Some formula.
yes, we are getting the answer, but in the float data type. So I have to convert them into integers. So this is the best. This is the answer they expected. So the question is to write a Python program that takes a list of numbers between 1 and 10, excluding one number, and returns the missing number. So the concept is we'll be having a list of 9 numbers between 1 and 10. So we need to find the missing one. So for that I'm defining a function called missing number, and in that I'm passing my list with 9 numbers, 1 number missing. And first I'm getting the total sum of the numbers between 1 and 10 using the sum function and range function and getting them, and then finding the total sum of the given list, and the difference between them will be our missing number. So we are using that concept to write a Python program that takes a list and number as an argument and add the number to the end of the list in the new view first element of the list. This is a direct question. So if, for example, if this is our list and 1 is our number, we need to pop the first value and add 1 at the end of the list. So for this I'm writing a function called nextInList, which takes the input values, inputs as list and number. So if the list is present, if the list is not a empty list, I'll be going into this one. This statement says that the first element will be popped. They will be popping the element of index 0. Then I'm appending my new element to it. So usually when you append, it will be added at the end of the list. Then I'm returning the list. Or else if the list is an empty one, then we'll be telling no list has been selected. This one is to write a Python program that takes a list of dictionaries and returns the sum of people's budgets. So input dictionary that having a column that has a key called budget. So those sum must be returned. Those standards must be summed and they cannot be returned. We will be writing the program. So this is the program code. So first I'm defining a function called getBudgets and I'm passing the dictionary in it. So and then I'm selecting for every person in the list, which means first this one will be selected, then this one and this one iteratively. So first for the first one, I'm selecting the key with budget and I'm summing them. So this returns a list of all the values of the budgets present in the dictionary. Then using the sum function I'm summing them, then I'm returning them. So write a Python program that takes a string and returns a string with its letters in alphabetical order. So for example, if this is our input string, or if hello is our input string, we will be splitting the letters and sorting them, and we will be returning this in the alphabetical order. So for that, I am defining a function called alphabetical soup and taking the input as text, and when I am returning first I am taking the input, then I am simply sorting them. After sorting them, they will be in the form of list, separated by commas. So I am joining them, having no spaces in between. Then I am returning them. So I write a function for finding the compound interest. So there are 4 parameters. The first one is the principal amount, the second one is the total time taken, and the third one is the interest rate, and the fourth one is the rate at which the interest multiplies in a year, increases in a year. So for that I'm writing a function called compound interest, taking 4 inputs as parameters, P for principal amount, T for the time, and R for the rate, and N for the number of times the rate increases in a year. So this is the formula for finding the compound interest. And after finding the compound interest, I'm rounding it off to 2 decimals. So that's why I'm using this one function. So the next question is to write a Python program that takes a list of elements and returns only the integers. So here you can see this is a list of elements and it returns only the integers. So for that I'm defining a function called return only integers, and I'm passing the input list and using list comprehension. And for every element in the list, if that element is in the integer data type, only then I'm returning that element. And the element will be in the form of list, and that list will be returned. So the true value is also returned. The same to make some concentration. In the year.
Then, thing, what do you get on the one that the seed. Yet, they teach. The
Okay, first step. Then here I just added the another condition that it shouldn't be a boolean also. So boolean is considered as a integer, I think. So I'm adding this extra condition to the function. Question is to write a Python program that takes 3 parameters x, y, and n, and will be returning an ordered list with numbers in the range that are divisible by the third parameter m. So between x and y, the numbers that are divisible by n will be returned. So for example, if this is our input list, and which is 1, 10, and 3, then between 1 and 10, the numbers that are divisible by 3 will be returned, which is 3, 6, and 9. So for this, I'm defining a function called list operation, passing 3 parameters x, y, n. So then using list comprehension for every element between x and y, including the y, and checking if that number is divisible by the third parameter, which is n. Then I'm taking that number and summing the list out of it. Then I'm returning that list. It's a Python program that takes in 2 lists and returns true if the second list follows the first list by 1 element and false otherwise. For example, if these are the two lists, we need to check exclude from the first list. We'll be excluding the last element, and from the second list we'll be excluding the first element, and we'll be checking the remaining. If they both are equal, then we'll be returning true. So for that, I'm defining a function called Simon says, and I'm passing my 2 lists as list 1 and list 2. So from the first list, I'm excluding the last element, and from the second list, I'm excluding the first element, and with the remaining, I'm checking if both are equal. If both are same, it will return true. Specifically, to write a Python program in which we'll be getting an input list with names, and we have to take the first letter of every name, and we must sort them in an alphabetical order, and we'll be returning them as a string. So this is the question. So for that, I'm defining a function called the society name, and I'm passing the names list. So using a list comprehension, first I'm forming a list with first letter of each name. So for that, I'm using for name in names, for every name in names, and just taking the first letter of that name, and I'm forming a list out of it. Then I'm sorting that list. Now after sorting, they'll be in a list format in the ascending order. So I need to join them as a single. I need to get them as a single string. So for that, I'm using this join function and join them with nothing in between them. So I'm returning, and I'm storing back in the secret name, and I'm returning that secret name variable. There you can see I'm getting that.
we pull it out. Let's go back to being what on
Soon as write a Python program to check isogram of a given word. So which means a given word should not have any repeated letter in it. So for that, I'm defining a function called isIsogram, and I'm passing the input word. So in the initially I'm converting all the letters in the word to lowercase. So in this case, we will be comparing the letters small s and capital S. We can't make a comparison with different cases. It will return as so they are not equal. So I'm converting everything into lowercase first, and then I'm forming a empty set called unique letters. Then for every letter present in that list, I'm checking if that letter is present in the unit letter set. So if present, I'll be returning false. So if not, I'll be adding that letter to the unique letters. So with this concept, I can find the isogram of our input text. So the next question is to write a Python program that takes a string and returns true or false depending on whether the character are in order or not. For example, if this is our input string, we need to check if these are already in the sorted manner. If they are sorted, we need to return true, or else we'll be returning false. For this, we will be defining a function called is in order, and we'll be passing the input string as yes. So we are checking if this yes is equal to the sorted form of yes, that is joined. And so if the sorted one is equal to the initial one, then we will be returning it as true. So that's what we do. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes a number as an argument and returns true or false depending on whether the number is symmetric or not. So for strings, we'll be finding palindrome. So the same concept is applying here. So we can use the same logic. So I'm defining a function called is symmetric, and I'm passing my number. So in the first step itself, I'll be converting them into string data type. So then as I do for the palindrome, I'll be doing them. So for this number string, I'm checking if this number string is equal to the reverse of it. If so, I'll be returning true. So yeah. Question is to write a Python program that takes the string of numbers separated by a commas and space and return the product of the numbers. So if this is our input, and we need to find the product of them. So for that, I'm defining a function called multiply numbers and number string as my input. So first, from the input, I'm splitting those input based on the comma and space. So every input has comma and space in between the numbers. So I'm using comma and space as my parameter for split, and I'm splitting those numbers. And now this will return in a list, and in that list, for every number, I'm converting those numbers and making a list, and I'm assigning it to numbers list. So this numbers list is an array that has every number in the integer data type. So I'm initializing a result equal to 1, a variable result equal to 1, and for every number present in the numbers list, I'll be multiplying them with the result and returning the result. So our next question is to write a Python program that squares every digit of a number. For example, if this is our input number, we'll be taking the square of every digit, like 9 square is 81, and 1 square is 1, and 1 square is 1, and again 9 square is 81. So from this, we'll be forming this. So for that, I'm defining a function called square digits and n as my input. So in the first step itself, I'm converting the number into a string. Then I'm assigning a result string as empty result string. Then followed by a for loop that takes for every digit in the number string, the digit will be squared. It will be converted into integer data type, and it is squared. So after that, it will be added in the result string. So again, we are converting them into string. So adding them into our result string. So if here we are not converting them in as an integer, then those numbers will be concatenated. We might expect error in it. So we are converting them into an integer and taking a square of it and storing them in the square digit, and this square digit is converted into string, and it is added to our result string, and we get our result string in the form of integer. So our next question is to write a Python program that sorts a list and removes all duplicates from it. For example, if this is our input, we need to sort them in the ascending order, as also we need to remove the duplicates. So for that, I'm defining a function called setify and list as my input. So I'm creating a unique set equal to set sorted list. So what this does is that here this sorted list function first sorts the list, And when we are converting it in a set data type, all the duplicates elements are filtered automatically. So then we are returning that unique set in the form of list. So our next question is to write a Python program that returns the mean of all the digits. For example, mean of 42 must be 4 plus 2 by 2, which will be 3, which is the average of 4 and 2. And same goes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The average of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be 3. So this is our problem statement. So for that, I'm defining a function called mean and passing the input as n. In the first step itself, I'm converting the input from into integer to string data type. Then for every element present in the string, I mean, if 42 is passed, first 4 will be selected. So for that 4, I'm converting that digit into integer, and then I'm summing it. So this will give a list of numbers like 4, 2. So those numbers will be summed and this will be stored in this variable. So after that, I'm finding the mean of it. Like I'm simply given the length of string. So length of string is stored in the digit count. So finding the digit mean, we'll be using the summed value divided by the length of the string. So that gives our digit mean, and we are converting it into an integer data type and returning it. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes an integer and returns a list from 1 to the given number. If the number is 4, if the amplified by 10. So if the input, so our target is to get an integer from the user, and from 1 till that integer, what are the numbers that are divisible by 4 will be multiplied with 10. So for that, I'm defining a function called amplify and the number as my input, and I'm using list comprehension to generate the list. So first, for every element between 1 and the given number, I am checking if that number is divisible by 4, then that is divisible by 4, then I am multiplying that number with 10, or else I am keeping it as it is. So this gives a list as we have expected. Question is to write a program that takes a list of numbers and returns the number that's unique. So if this is the input, in that only 7 is not repeating once, which means 7 is the only unique number, so we are getting 7. So this is our problem statement. For this, I am defining a function called unique and passing my input as numbers. For initially, I am creating an empty dictionary called countDict, and for every number in the numbers, I am running a for loop. If I am checking if that number is already present in count dictionary, I am incrementing its value, and if not, I am adding this number to the count dictionary. So finally, for every number and number comma count, for the key and value present in the count dictionary, I am checking if the value of that particular element is 1, then I am returning those. If it is more than 1, then we can say it is repeating more than 1 time, so we are not returning them. Only if it is repeating only once, we are returning those numbers, those keys. So that's what we're doing. So our next question is to create a circle constructor that creates a circle with a radius provided by an argument. And the circle constructor must have 2 getters, a square and emitter with 2 plus r. So we need to create a class called circle, and under that we will be having 2 functions, get area and get perimeter. So if we are calling the get area, we must be able to calculate the area of the circle, and if we are calling get parameter, it should be able to return the perimeter of the circle. So for that, I am defining a class called circle, and under that I am defining 2 functions, get area and get parameter. So this one is initialized. In the get area, I am writing the formula for area and returning that, and I am also now rounding it up with no values after the decimal. So that's why the parameter is not given. If it is not given, by default it is considered as 0. So I am rounding that, And this get parameter is called, I need to return the perimeter of the circle. So I'm writing the formula and rounding it off. So I'm getting the answers as well. Next question is to write a Python program that takes a list of strings and return a list sorted from shortest to longest. So we'll be getting the input in a list and we'll be sorting them based on the length of the words. So for that I'm defining a function called sort by length and passing my list as the input. And I'm using the sorted function to sort them and the key as length. So based on the length of the words, we'll be sorting the list and returning it. The next question is to write a Python program that validates whether 3 given integers form a Pythagorean triplet. The sum of squares of 2 is equal to square of. So we'll be defining a function that takes 3 parameters. So we need to find whether sum of squares of 2 parameters is equal to the square of the third one. So for that we need to initially we need to sort the list. So sort them if A, B, C are there. If A, B, C are the parameters, we need to sort them in the ascending order. For that I'm using this. Then I need to check if sum of the first 2 elements, sum of the squares of first 2 elements is equal to the square of the third element. So you can use this method, or you can simply A, B, C, sort them and store in A, B, C order. Then A, check if A square plus B square equals C square. Say. So our next question is to write a Python program that takes 3 integer arguments A, B, C and returns the amount of integer which are of equal value. For example, if this is our inputs, here 3 is repeating twice, so the output is 2. And here the 1 is repeating thrice, so our output is 3. Here none of the items are repeated, so our output is 0. So for this I'm using just a nested if else. So I'm defining a function called equal and passing 3 arguments, 3 parameters in it. So if all 3 are equal, I will be returning 3. If any 2 are equal, I will be returning 2, or else I will be returning 0. The next question is to write a Python program that converts a dictionary into a list of key value tuples. So this one is easy. For that I'm defining a function called dict2list and passing the input dictionary in it. First I'm sorting them and storing these a sorted dictionary in the sorted dict variable. Then I have to convert them into key value pairs. So for that I'm using a list comprehension method. And for key comma value in sorted dict, so the key will be assigned to key and the value will be separately assigned to value. So for every time I'll be making them in a tuple using this round bracket. So key comma value, and this will give me a list of tuples that will be stored in list and the list will be returned. The next question is to write a Python program that creates a dictionary with each key value pair being the lowercase uppercase versions of letter respectively, and all the letters are input in the lowercase. So we need to convert the input text into a key value pair, the input letters into a key value pair, where the key will be a lowercase and the value will be an uppercase. For example, P, S is our input. We will be converting them into as key equal to P and value as capital P. Same goes for S. So for that I'm defining a function called mapping and my inputs are letters. So first I'm initializing an empty dictionary variable as result, and for every letter present in the letters, for every element in the letters list, I am assigning those. I am forming a dictionary for this result. That letter will be my key and the uppercase of that letter will be my value. So I am doing that and I am returning that result. Questions to write a Python program that replaces all vowels in a string with a specified vowel. For example, if this is our input string, we'll be replacing all the vowels in it with the specified vowel. So for that, and all the words will be lowercase. So no need to worry about the casing. So for that, I'm defining a function called vowel replace, and then this is my input string, and this will be my vowel with which I need to replace the vowels with. So first I'm defining the vowels, which is A, I, E, O, U. So since all are in the lowercase, we need not worry about the vowels in the uppercase. So then I'm defining a empty string called result, and for every letter present in the string, and if that letter is present in this vowel string, I'll be replacing that letter with the given vowel and adding it to the result. If not, I'm just adding that letter to the result itself. So in this case, first A will be checked, and if since A is an vowel, we are replacing A with U. So next P is checked. Since P isn't a vowel, we are directly adding that P. Same goes for another one, same goes for L. And if E is checked with the vowels, and since E is a vowel, we are replacing E with U. So that's how it works. So next question is to write a Python program that takes a string as input and capitalize a letter if its ASCII is even, and returns lower version if it's right. So we need to write a program that takes the input string, and we need to capitalize those words that have even ASCII values. So for that, I'm defining a function called ASCII capitalize, and this is my input string, and I'm defining an empty string called result. So for every character, for every letter present in the input string, I'll be finding the ASCII number of it. So this on function is used to define the ASCII code for it. And if that ASCII code is divisible by 2, then it is an even number. Then for those even numbers, I'll be converting them into an uppercase and adding those to our result. And or else, I'll be converting them into lowercase and adding those to my result. So then finally, I'll return my result. So that's it. This is the end of my task 1.